Welcome. Our story today. I'm being followed by a fly, and I don't know why. After swearing he would never drink again, Evan decided he needed one last hurrah. If he was going to truly quit drinking, then he wanted to get drunker than he had ever been before, as a way of saying goodbye to the experience. Where am I? The entire night was a blur, and the morning had been as well. Evan found himself walking around the block, trying to sweat out the booze. He felt absolutely terrible. I never want to drink again. The splitting headache was excruciating. But what really bugged Evan was this incessant buzzing circling his head. Evan walked quickly up the block, hoping that the bug would leave, but the buzzing persisted. "Piss off, fly. Can't you see I'm hungover?" he said. Evan started flailing around wildly to try to smack the bug out of its orbit around his head. Across the street, an elderly couple stared in Evan's direction. "Fuck, they're gonna think I'm crazy," he thought. "Sorry, just a fly." The elderly couple turned around, walked back inside. "Assholes," he thought. "They completely ignored me." The buzzing started again. "Where are you, you little flying fucker?" It must have been a fly on account of how loud the buzzing was, but he couldn't see it. Maybe it was a gnat? Whatever was making the sound, it was practically inside Evan's ears now. Fuck. Evan swatted at his ear. Fuck this shit. He started running back to his apartment. He'd recover in the comfort of his room, maybe have a beer to take off the edge. "Just one beer. Then I'll quit, I swear." Evan jogged home, making sure to cross the street multiple times, but the fly just kept following him. Persistent bastard, I'll give him that, he thought. No matter what he did, he couldn't shake the noisy insect. He got to the apartment as someone was opening the front door. "Out of the way, coming through." Evan jumped right past them and through the door. They seemed not to notice at all. He ran to his unit and saw the door wide open. His roommate must have been trying to let the breeze in, since he refused to turn on the AC, even in the scorching summer heat. "I'm back," Evan said, to no response. His roommate was playing Xbox with the headset on. "You'll never believe this. A fly followed me my entire walk, all the way home. That's weird, right?" His roommate didn't break eye contact with the screen. The buzzing started again. "Motherfucker, he followed me inside?" Evan thought. He had a novelty salt-shooting gun for insects, an assault gun buried somewhere in his closet. This fly was toast when he found his fly-killing salt shooter. "Just wait, you asshole. I'm a crack shot," he said. The door to Evan's room was ajar, and after taking a step inside, Evan knew something was very wrong. If I'm standing here, then who's that?" Lying on the floor, in a pool of vomit, was Evan. A bottle of whiskey still in his hand. A small swarm of flies had gathered around his head, buzzing right into the corpse's ear. This story is called "I Found My Dog After It Went Missing, but Something's Off." My dog, Bailey, went missing a few days ago. I'd been out all day with my friend, bearing in mind I'm usually home for the majority of the day, on account of being unable to work. So the dog is never alone, and usually if he is, it's not for very long at all. I also live with my parents and my brother, so much of the time there's at least one person in the house. Monday, I'd gotten home later than usual. My parents hadn't got home from work yet, and my brother had left to stay at his girlfriend's for a little while after I had left. As usual, I'd walked into the house shouting to Bailey that I was home. I walked into the kitchen to unlock his crate and let him out when my heart sunk. The crate door was wide open. I didn't panic straight away. I thought maybe my brother had forgotten to put him in his crate, although deep down I knew that the cameras and alarm would have picked up any movement. It had been about 10 minutes after I got home when I realized that the back door was still wide open. I immediately rushed outside, looking around the garden to see if Bailey was out there. But within seconds I realized a part of the fence was broken, and he must have somehow squeezed through it. I ended up calling my parents, and then my brother, who was adamant that he had locked the back door and put the dog in his crate, although it wouldn't be the first time that he had forgotten to do so. I then ended up checking the cameras that in my panic I'd completely forgotten about. This, however, freaked me out a bit. On the camera you could clearly see my brother putting Bailey in his crate, locking it, and then checking that all the doors and windows were closed. My heart sunk. I felt violently ill. The only way that he could have gotten out would have been if someone else had broken in. The thought brought up so many questions. How did they unlock the door? How was there nothing broken? Why didn't the camera motion detector notify anyone? I skipped ahead to see if the camera had found anything. Maybe my brother had come back or something like that. I got to one part in the recording and realized the dog was no longer in his crate. The door was wide open as I had found it. I went back a bit, but the recording didn't seem to have picked up any movement between the time he was in his crate and when he was gone. Nothing had shown up on any of the other cameras either. At this point, everyone was absolutely heartbroken. We didn't think any more about this weird situation. We were too busy asking anyone and everyone if they had seen him. We put up posters, asked around on social media. We were so determined to find him. I started getting nightmares. After the first night that he was gone, I'd often wake up in cold sweats multiple times in the night. I couldn't stomach the awful images and thoughts surfacing in my head about what could have happened to him. I have been so attached to that dog since the moment we got him. To think that he was never going to come back, that thought was just unbearable. So when we found him today, Thursday morning, I felt like I could actually breathe again. We were all so relieved to have him back. That was until now. Bailey had been off ever since we found him, but originally it was just brushed off because he'd never been away from us that long, and we thought that he'd obviously been shaken up a bit about it. My parents still keep saying that, but his eyes, they're not his eyes. They're not those cute, innocent, little puppy eyes. They're dark, cold, and empty. And I know you could say that it was just from being alone outside for days, but there's just something wrong, and I know it. No one believes me, but that is not our dog. Bailey was playful and would cuddle up next to you, and you'd feel so happy and loved. But this thing acts, and it pretends to be Bailey. But I swear, it's not. The way it stares at me, like some sort of prey. When it cuddles up next to me, all I feel is cold. My anxiety feels at an all-time high, like this dog, this thing right next to me is dangerous. It looks at me like it knows. It knows that I know. I've ended up staying at my friend's house for a few days. I just don't feel safe at home. I've been looking back on the cameras over and over, and I swear I can see some kind of shadow. My friend said my brain is making it up because I want to see something, for some kind of explanation to exist. Maybe she's right, but I don't know. I swear to you, in the back of the garden, the same hour Bailey went missing, there's a face in the bushes. It's not a human one. The figure is so hard to see, but it looks lanky, and it's on all fours. And it's staring right at the camera. That figure is the same silhouette that I can see on the kitchen floor, on the kitchen camera, after Bailey miraculously disappeared. It's completely unnerving. I want to stop looking, but I can't seem to pull my face away from the screen. I don't know what's going on. I just know that dog at home, if it even is one, is not Bailey. And I have a sinking feeling it'll do anything to make sure no one else finds out that it's not. Our story this time is called Ethan. Once upon a time, in a sleepy little town, there lived a young boy named Ethan. He was known for his wild imagination and his talent for drawing. However, Ethan's life took a chilling turn when a traumatic incident left him scarred, both physically and mentally. It all started on a dreary afternoon as Ethan walked home from school. Wanting to save time, he decided to take a shortcut through a desolate park. As he strolled past the old, rusty playground, something caught his eye. A peculiar-looking doll laying abandoned in the dirt. Drawn to its strange allure, Ethan reached down and picked it up, unaware of the dark secret that it held. That night, Ethan drifted off to sleep. He was thrust into a horrifying nightmare. He found himself trapped in a pitch-black room, an eerie silence hanging heavy in the air. In the corner of the room stood the doll, vacant eyes piercing through him. Its presence exuded a malevolent aura that sent shivers down his spine. The dream was suffocating, drenched in an unexplainable terror that Ethan couldn't shake off. From that moment forward, Ethan's life spiraled into a nightmarish existence. The once cheerful and imaginative boy became a shell of his former self. He became plagued by paranoia, hearing faint whispers and catching glimpses of sinister shadows lurking just beyond his vision. Days turned into weeks, and as Ethan continued to struggle with his mounting fear, he stumbled upon a forgotten sketch tucked away in a dusty corner in his room. It was a drawing he couldn't recall creating. His hands trembled as he stared at the paper. The sketch portrayed a monstrous figure with hollowness in its eyes and a twisted grin on its face, an uncanny resemblance to the doll he had discovered in the park. It dawned on Ethan that his nightmares were bleeding into reality. Haunted by the doll's malevolence, Ethan found solace in his art. Late into the night, he would feverishly draw, his creations growing darker and more disturbing with every stroke of his pencil. The pictures seemed to come alive, emanating an unsettling energy that permeated the room. It was as if the essence of his torment had materialized onto the paper. Word of Ethan's eerie drawings spread throughout the town, and fear crept into the hearts of the townsfolk. Whispers circulated, casting doubt on the nature of the boy's soul. Parents cautioned their children to steer clear of him, wary of the sinister influence they believed had taken a hold of him. As Ethan's mental state continued to deteriorate, his drawings took on a life of their own. They mysteriously found their way into the hands of those who doubted his suffering, revealing their deepest fears and haunting them relentlessly. The town fell into a state of panic, gripped by an inexplainable malevolence that seemed to emanate from Ethan's very being. In the final throes of his torment, Ethan's drawing took an even more sinister turn. His last creation depicted himself trapped within a nightmarish realm of his own making. In the drawing, he was surrounded by twisted figures that seemed to reflect the demons that had consumed his mind. The morning after he completed the drawing, Ethan's lifeless body was discovered in his bed, the sketch resting by his side. To this day, the people of the town warn against stumbling upon one of Ethan's drawings. It is said that those who gaze upon them are cursed, plagued by the tormenting nightmares and the sting of inexplicable misfortune. They caution others to avoid the desolate playground where it all began. It is whispered that the doll that corrupted Ethan's mind still lurks in the shadows, patiently awaiting its next unsuspecting victim. The townspeople share chilling stories of encountering the doll's presence, describing its hollow gaze that seems to follow them, and the unnerving feeling of being watched. Some claim to have heard faint whispers on the wind, carrying echoes of Ethan's torment. Others recount sleepless nights, haunted by nightmares that mirror the grotesque imagery within his drawings. In hushed tones, they exchange warnings, urging one another to steer clear of the park where the doll was found. They believe that the playground has become a portal to the realm of darkness, where the boundaries between nightmares and reality blur, a place where the doll's influence lingers, waiting for a new victim to cross its path. As time goes on, the story of Ethan and the malevolent doll becomes a cautionary tale passed down through generations. It serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of the human psyche and the horrors that can emerge from unresolved trauma. And so, the legend lives on, instilling a sense of unease and curiosity in those who hear it. It serves as a reminder that, even in the seemingly ordinary, there may lie an unsettling darkness, waiting to awaken with a single touch or a fleeting glance. You never know what you'll find in darkness. You never know what you'll find in yourself when you're fearing the darkness. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments below. If you'd like to support me reading more stories like this, please consider liking or subscribing. I do hope you'll join me in the future for more frail Blaze tales.